Course of the day's biggest political news stories and events. While the political waters in the country continues to get stirred every now and then, and while the major focus now is apparently on what happens with post-election litigations, there's been a lot of build-up as well to the May 29 expected inauguration of President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whose government in waiting has been seeking for endorsement from countries and governments across the world, most of whom have been invited by INEC, and that's a congratulatory message from a ranking official of the U.S. government. While the U.S. Department had already congratulated him on his election victory, the APC expressed concerns as to congratulated Tinubu on his election win. Well, they somewhat got that call yesterday, but not from Joe Biden himself, but from the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who has said the U.S. government is ready to work with the Nigerian government and the Tinubu administration, drawing, of course, who claimed they had identified persons who had undermined the democracy in the country, one of whom is MC Oluomo, who is referred to as a political godson of the president-elect. Well, these are issues we'll touch on as we progress, plus the race for the leadership positions in the 10th National Assembly being thrown open by the APC. What informed the change in this direction? We'll find out later. But first, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, has told the Presidential Election Petition Court to facilitate the prosecution of his petition. Obi, who came third in the February 25 presidential polls, is challenging the conduct and the outcome of the poll. Now, at yesterday's pre-hearing session, Obi insisted that the election was manipulated in favor of the candidate of the All Progressives Congress APC, Bola Tinubu. Well, his late counsel, Dr. Libya Uzogu, specifically told Justice Aruna Samani and his 5-member tribunal that he could not access 5 million naira to process election materials from Sokoto State. Well, Uzogu told the tribunal that in the case of Rivers State, the INEC resident electoral commissioner had boldly told them that they do not have any Form EC8 to give. He also like the bimodal voter accreditation system BVAS machines that were deployed for the conduct of the polls. Now, in one of such rulings, the court had on March 3rd and 8th directed the electoral body to make available certified true copies of result sheets and other data obtained from the BVAS machines to tender same to aid the petitioner's case. Now, Uzoku equally referred to 5 separate letters written to the INEC chairman, Yakubu Mahmood, requesting that access also be granted to inspect allegations, said his client was ready to cooperate with all parties in the petition and the court. He also told the court that Obi's legal team had declined to attend the meeting that was called to streamline issues around documents to be tendered before the court. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Labour Congress NLC yesterday accused Lamidi Apapa, the Labour Party's factional chairman, of being an interloper. Now, this was contained in a statement issued by the secretary of the NLC Political Commission, Comrade Chris Uyot, or earlier in the camp of the national chairman of the party, Julius Abure, had mobbed him. Now, the incident occurred outside the appeal court, which is the venue of the tribunal sitting at the nation's federal capital territory, Abuja. While Apapa was kept around out of the premises by policemen amid the loud boos of party members. Now, the disagreement between the two camps of the Labour Party on which group should be in court happened just when the tribunal had commenced sitting. Now, Apapa, who also attempted to occupy the seat reserved for Abure, was resisted by some members of the party. Now, the statement further alluded that certain elements in the political class are using Apapa in order to create a division within the Labour Party. Well, a chieftain of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has condemned the telephone conversation between the United States Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, and the President-elect, Bola Tinubu. Blinken had phoned Tinubu yesterday to assure him that the Joe Biden administration is committed to strengthening ties with Nigeria and his government. In a statement released by the spokesperson for the U.S. Department of State, Matthew Miller, Blinken told Tinubu that the U.S.-Nigeria partnership is built on shared interest and strong people-to-people ties, and that those links should continue strengthening under Tinubu's tenure. Miller of Nigeria. The developments came 24 hours after the Joe Biden administration announced the imposition of visa restrictions on Nigerians who they said undermined the democratic process during the 2023 polls. But reacting to the development in a chat with newsmen, the PDP Deputy National Youth Leader Timothy Osadolo urged Tinubu not to be deceived by the call from Blinken, adding that the call is not an endorsement of his person or victory. Osadolo argued that the phone call from the U.S. yesterday said Tinubu and his co-traveler should not be fooled by the phone call from the Secretary of State of the U.S. government. It is not an endorsement of his person or his hotly contested and smeared purported victory. Rather, the United States government at its jugular economically, China at a tail economically, military and technologically, and the top spot of world power. It makes sense for the USA to be looking for strategic allies around the globe and make no mistake in the community of nations. Let's go to the legislative arm now, where Senate presidential hopeful Godswill Akpabio and his running mate Barral Jibril took their campaign to the leadership of the Labour Party and that of the meeting with the leadership of the All Progressives Congress APC. While addressing the National Working Committee of the NNPP, led by its acting national chairman, Abakawu Ali, Senator Akpabio said that his team, called the Stability Group, was determined to ensure and secure the support of the leadership of the opposition parties ahead of the June 13, 2023 inauguration of the National Assembly. Well, he said the membership of the Stability Group actually cuts across party lines, and they were holding extensive consultations. But he said they've never had a situation where 8 political parties were going to have a place in the 10th National Assembly. It's never happened before. Meanwhile, former Senate leader and the current senator representing Borno South also doubles as the 69 senators-elect supporting the aspirations of Senators Akpabio and Jibril. Well, from the red chambers to the green, where the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, has expressed regrets following his support for a forum that championed the emergence of Governor Aminu Tamila stated this while reacting to the previous attempt by speakership aspirants to oppose the chosen candidate of their respective parties. Well, the Speaker made these remarks in Abuja yesterday during a meeting of the Joint Tax 10th Assembly, which is a coalition of members-elect, Tajuddin Abbas and Benjamin Kalu, as the anointed candidate of the APC for the positions of Speaker and Deputy Speaker, respectively, for the 10th House. Well, before Gbajabiamila actually spoke, Senator Godswill Akpabio, the APC candidate for the President of the Senate, accompanied the Speaker into the venue and delivered a brief remark before, of course, leaving. So, the build-up to the 10th National Assembly is seemingly gathering just as wider momentum as the hopeful presidential inauguration of May 29. And these, interestingly, are the issues that will form the basis of discussion this morning, especially as the Tinubu incumbent administration continues to seek ratification and endorsement of the election victory itself. Does this legitimize or is a purported recognition of the incumbent administration of Bola Tinubu by the U.S. government, which has drawn criticisms from several quarters who say the U.S. is not sincere in its bid to punish those who they said undermined democracy here in the country. We'll look at all of these and more when we come back from this break that beckons to stay with us. Political Spectrum will continue.
It's a lockout. It's a lockout. Are you okay? You have to be civil. The way you approach it, are you here to represent? I know him. No, nobody knows you. Don't say that. Nobody knows you. Hey, don't try. Don't ever try and touch me. If you dare try and touch me, are you okay? Just let it go, please. What is going on? Get away, you there! Sorry.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and service advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on Channel 421 on StarTimes to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
The Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge
the scope of people who should be invited here.
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My Lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my Lord.
this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord. These cases are in court, my Lord. I'm just reminding your Lordship.
My Lord, sorry, my Lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally.
Every day, we bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting the common Nigerian. From issues on politics,
Hello, Nigeria. I remain committed.
and so much more. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyeken every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story. One truth.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Welcome back and thanks for staying on. You're still watching Political Spectrum live on Spectrum Television. Yes, a quick reminder of the major focus of our discussion this morning. The race for the 10th National Assembly is, of course, heating up as Senator Godswill Akpabio and the Jibrin Barrow merger have secured 69 senators-elect signature endorsing and backing their aspirations to become the Speaker, or rather the Senate President and Deputy Senate President, respectively, of the 10th National Assembly. Except there's been a twist as the All Progressives Congress APC has reversed its initial zoning policy for the principal positions in the 10th National Assembly, the President-elect Bola Tinubu, where he reiterated the U.S.'s support for the Nigerian government and the incoming administration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, thus legitimize or endorse his election victory, which some say it's the Labour Party who are having more post-election concerns than they ever imagined. And while, of course, the presidential candidate of the party, Peter Obi, is already beleaguered with responsibilities of trying to wrestle a mandate he believes he lost at the polls, with the ongoing entertained having more concerns of its own to deal with internally. A fracas that brewed when a federal high court in Abuja restrained Julius Abure and several others from parading themselves as national chairman and leaders of the party respectively, led to the emergence of two factions. One led by Apapa, Lamidi Apapa, leader of the Labour Party, with respect to the appeal that they filed challenging the Federal High Court's decision to restrain Abure from parading himself as the national chairman of the party. Well, matters got to a head just yesterday when the Presidential Election Petitions Court appeared to have been manhandled. Let's take a look at the pictures here to confirm the story itself. Apapa actually made his way to the Presidential Elections Court to, of course, national chairman of the Labour Party, but it was actually meant for Mr. Julius Abure, the erstwhile restrained national leader or national chairman of the party, who were loyal to Julius Abure. Well, Apapa has denied receiving 500 million naira from any quarters to scuttle the case of the party at the Presidential Elections Petitions Court, because that's the allegation coming out from other quarters, including to truncate the electoral process here in the country. And I wonder how fathers will go with the Labour Party and all its antics, of course, that have been deployed by several factions to authenticate who truly, the one being supervised by the Lamidi Apapa faction, the other took place in Delta State, and it was called by the Julius Abure faction, which, by the way, was the one attended by Mr. Peter Obi himself, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, as well as Dati Baba Ahmed, the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party. They had attended that, as well as all the 36 chapter chairmen of the Labour Party across Nigeria. They were all in attendance at that meeting. Well, the Lamidi Apapa faction said it had forgiven Mr. Peter Obi and the others for attending that Congress, and said Julius Abure as the chairman of the party. Well, we do know that another faction of the Labour Party, and expectedly the Abure faction, also secured another High Court order that dismissed Lamidi Apapa as the Labour Party national chairman, even though it's been active party. When you have two different court pronouncements dismissing the two factions and their supposed leaders from parading themselves as national chairman of the party, one would think that Mr. Peter Obi needs to rise to the occasion as the national leader of the party, courtesy of his position as the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, by wading into this crisis. He has by the Abure faction, and the Lamidi faction is not happy about it and said, we have a court ruling that says Abure is not the chairman of the party. You can't go attending these congresses. But on the other hand, there's also a court ruling that says Apapa is not the chairman of the party. So where would the party go to from now? It calls for leadership, and who better than Mr. Peter Obi himself to delve into this? But I'm not sure they had envisaged the drama, the drama that followed there, with Mr. Lamidi Apapa apparently being rough-handled by purported supporters of the Julius Abure faction, who prevented him from taking a seat that was set to have been reserved for Julius Abure himself at the Presidential Election Petitions Court. So it's raised a lot of those questions about the electioneering period. Not forgetting, the former national chairman of the party was actually forced to step down from his role after there were issues of corruption cases tied to him, referring to Doyin Okupe, former senior special advisor under his leadership. And it similarly continued as well when Julius Abure took over as the national chairman of the party following Okupe's resignation. No one envisaged the crisis we're seeing at the moment, and where it's all coming from is the biggest headache right now. There are many who claim that the Lamidi Apapa faction are apparently being sponsored by political opponents to foment trouble in the Labour Party and also draw the party backwards. Is of feigned ignorance of this, including the APC, who have been pinpointed as a major suspect in all of this. Some Labour Party chieftains believe it is the APC who is sponsoring the Lamidi Apapa faction to foment. Denied. It claims it never took any 500 million naira from any quarters, as is being speculated, and it's also asked the presidential candidate of the party, Mr. Peter Obi, to intervene in the leadership tussle of the party. Objective raised about this person and whether there's any truth to the rumors that he actually accepted a bribe of 500 million naira to foment trouble within the party. Very strong. You need to, of course, play an objective role in all of this, and it's called on him to be unbiased as well in handling the crisis in order to resolve the leadership tussle. Well, how can you resolve a tussle of this nature? And a lot of those questions are hovered around the aspirations of Lamidi Apapa to continue staying on as the Labour Party chairman and what he stands to benefit from this, because the Federal High Court's ruling itself came as a surprise to many. The court said that Julius Abure was not validly nominated and told Lamidi Apapa in the acting capacity role. Well, it raises the question, why now? Why around the post-election period? Why around a critical period in the annals of the party's history where it has a serious matter to contend with? Some would have said this should be a matter for the Labour Party and not the Federal High Court. So who are those championing the removal of Abure from office as national chairman of the party, if not the Apapa faction itself? Well, Apapa City, well, there's no smoke without fire. And perhaps if that answer is, addressed first off by Mr. Peter Obi, as is the request from Apapa, then we can know the roots of this problem and perhaps judge whether Mr. Apapa is guilty of the allegations leveled against him of receiving money from opposing party, describing it as disgraceful and a test to Obi's leadership qualities. Well, maybe Mr. Papa would have thought about that before first deciding to invade the PEPC's premises. And statements from officials at the Court of Appeal yesterday also confirmed that the Labour Party's trip to the court yesterday also made it very clear that Julius Abure was the man expected to be on that seat, as has been the case since the commencement of the pre-hearing by the Court of Appeal. So, why Decisions Court hearing commenced on Monday, May 8th, and it's taken about a week or more before Apapa decided to make an entrance, and without, of course, going through due processes as required before you can gain entrance into a court premises. So, needs to stem down on hitting up the polity as they have been accused in recent times. So, these are interesting developments within the Labour Party, and the big question for many as well is whether this will not hamper its chances of success at the PEPC, where they're challenging the outcome of the February, the Labour Party to put its house in order and ensure that this crisis become a thing of the past. Well, there's been more reactions as well on this. First off, there's been claims from the APC that they were not responding all of this. Well, as I said earlier on, there's no smoke without fire, and I'm sure investigators are right on the tail of this to ascertain how true these allegations are. But stay with us. We'll look at two other pressing concerns that's, of course, post-Buhari administration. First off, Is the phone call from Anthony Blinken to President-elect Bola Tinubu a proper endorsement by the Joe Biden administration, or just a way of by the leadership of the All Progressive Congress? What informed the change in this direction? We'll find out when we come back. Just stay with us.
You have to be simple. The way you approach it.
Who are you here to represent?
I know him.
No, nobody knows you.
Don't say that.
Nobody knows you. Nobody knows you.
Who are you too?
Nobody knows you, sir.
So why are you telling me? No, please. Why you saying why you
Don't try. Don't ever try and touch me. If you dare try and touch me, are you okay?
Thanks for staying on. And this is Political Spectrum Live on Spectrum Television. As always, you can connect with us on Start Times DTH Channel 421. And for live feeds, just head to all of our social media platforms and do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And you can find all of this on our website. Just search spectrumtv.ng. Leave us a message as well, especially on our Facebook page. We'd love to read from you as the conversation does continue right after now on this platform. So a quick reminder of the major story this morning, as seen from the footage. Crisis brewing within the Labour Party. Media Papa was apparently manhandled by purported supporters of another factional leader of the party, Julius Abure, at the presidential election petitions court yesterday. And from that footage, you could see Mr. Papa in court attempting to get a seat that was reportedly reserved for the factional leader Julius Abure by his supporters in court. I don't know how true most of these claims are, but I'm sure in the next few days more investigations unfolding as far as yesterday's crisis was concerned will definitely unfold, and we have a true picture of what really happened there. But the court, Mr. Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the party, was present as well at yesterday's proceedings, and surely had a front row view of the whole episode that ensued. He has been, of course, called upon to intervene in the crisis and ensure peace returns to the Labour Party and his presidential election petitions court. Well, away from all of that, let's turn our sights now to May 29. It's just a matter of days before President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu eventually gets inaugurated as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria after being announced winner of the February 25 presidential post by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, led by Professor Mahmood Yakubu. Well, Tinubu reportedly polled over 8 million plus votes to defeat his closest challenger, Atiku Abubakar. It's normal news that the opposing parties are challenging the outcome of that election in court. Well, INEC and the APC and Tinubu himself have insisted they won the elections on fair grounds. Following the formal declaration of Tinubu as president-elect, encomiums, congratulations have been pouring in from home and abroad, congratulating him on his purported win. From President Buhari, the roller coaster goes ahead to other world leaders, including Recep Tayyip Erdogan of Turkey. The UK Prime Minister has also made a call. The leaders of Canada, Australia, Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine has also made calls as well, including Vladimir Putin of Russia and Xi Jinping of China. The list just goes on. But the president of the most powerful country in the world, the United States, Joe Biden, is yet to make that call. So much so call to Tinubu to congratulate him on his election victory, while he accepted that the U.S. Department had already issued a congratulatory statement themselves a few days after Tinubu was declared president-elect. He maintained that the call from Joe Biden was sacrosanct and should come. Well, it hasn't come up until now, but arguably the third most powerful man in the U.S. executive system, Antony Blinken, is the U.S. Secretary of State, has made that call. Well, speaking to the press yesterday, Matthew Miller, the U.S. government was pretty much interested in the affairs of Nigeria's democracy and wishes to ensure that the democracy in the country is not undermined. And this is coming on the back of an initial statement released within the week as well, where the U.S. said it was identifying names that had contributed to, brewing violence and undermining the electoral process at the just concluded elections in Nigeria, where they say been identified. Well, the media space in the country came agog after that statement from the U.S. saying visa restrictions would be imposed on some of these persons that they are yet to publicly name. A lot of persons have made reference to comments by top officials of the APC, including Fani Kayode, Festus Keyamo, as well as MC Oluomo, a somewhat favorite of President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who all made what were termed to be in the course of the electioneering. So, for the U.S. government to eventually place that call to Bola Tinubu and say they were ready to work with his administration to advance the course of democracy in the country, it looks like it's the U.S. speaking from both sides of their mouths. And this is a claim that has been backed by a top official of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, who has said, look, as far as we know it, it is the same thing as talking to the Buhari administration or just about anyone who is at the helm of affairs of the country, but said this should not in any way give Tinubu a false hope, as they put it, that he would be the president of the country in the long term, because they were pretty confident. Released to this effect, condemning the phone call by Antony Blinken yesterday. The Deputy National Youth Leader of the PDP, Timothy Osadolo, says Tinubu should have some of the comments he made in this regard yesterday. And it writes, Tinubu and his co-travelers should not be fooled by the phone call from the Secretary of the United States government. It is not an endorsement of his person or his hotly contested and smeared purported victory. Rather, with the BRICS nation at its jugular economically, China at her tail economically, military, and technologically as well, and the top spot of the world power, it does make sense for the USA to be looking for strategic allies around the globe. And make no mistake, and leaders is key. The only thing is that the US only called a temporary or a stopgap not to delude himself into thinking is now legitimized by the phone call. Well, there are some who have also berated Mr. Sadler for his comment about the phone call made by Blinken to Tinubu when he says it's not enough to legitimize his election victory. I mean, in simply making a phone call to an incumbent administration in another country. There is no provision in the Nigerian constitution that says until a certain percentage of world leaders call in to congratulate a president-elect or governor-elect, only then can such persons be inaugurated into office. So we've seen calls from China's election victory. Same would have been the case if, let's say, we had an Atiku or Peter Obi as president-elect, and then you had a lot of world leaders calling to congratulate him. It would make no difference. A call is just a call to recognize a declaration made by the only recognized electoral body in the country. Yes, the jury is still out there on whether INEC did the declaration going by, the provisions of the Constitution and the Electoral Act. But Tinubu stands court. So is the PDP not shooting over its bounds by making remarks of this nature, or are they feeling, angered at the fact that the US is seemingly tilted towards endorsing or recognizing a Tinubu government if it does get inaugurated? Others have viewed this with a kind of suspicion as well. Why has Joe Biden not made the call himself? Or is it perhaps waiting until Tinubu does get inaugurated? Or are they monitoring the entire president-elect Bola Tinubu was also culpable for some of the election irregularities that we saw in the presidential election? Would they withdraw their endorsement? And to what extent will it be of a damage to the Nigeria-US ties? Because that's the focus. It wasn't just about the phone call, but because Nigeria-US relations over the years has always been a model and a standard for the rest of the continents to follow, and they will have loved to keep up with that tradition. And this was also buttressed by Blinken, according to President Buhari, and any president coming on board would have to be the one, being the face of those ties and those discussions. And right now, it looks like it's Tinubu who will be inaugurated on May 29. So the U.S. government, perhaps, in response to the claims by Osadolo that the call doesn't legitimize or endorse his government, perhaps the Atiku or the Labour Party faction, because they are the aggrieved parties seeking redress in court as a fallout from the just concluded presidential election. But we have someone who has been recognized as president-elect, and going forward, if he's going to get sworn in on May 29 all the same, some would say there's perhaps no reason for Anthony Blinken or the US not to make that call. But staying up as a follow-up from the election concerns itself, INEC, Tinubu, and the ongoing proceedings as well. What they've said, as far as we're concerned, the court is not a cinema where people will just come, sit down and watch any kind of movie as you like. These are serious matters and should not be broadcast live. The argument of those who want a televised broadcast is that far as this go, with respect to the prayers being made by the PDP and the Labour Party asking for a televised broadcast, the court is yet to make a pronouncement on this matter, even though they've confirmed that they have entertained suit seeking for a televised broadcast of the presidential election petitions court proceedings in Abuja. National Assembly, where the principal positions for the 10th Assembly is heating up gradually as the All Progressives Congress APC has reversed its zoning decision by throwing the race open. How will this affect all hands involved in this matter? We'll talk about that when we come back. Stay with us.
police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of the death of Abiola.
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we
In cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Issues affecting the common Nigerian, from issues on politics,
Hello, Nigeria. I remain committed.
security, education, health, lifestyle, and so much more. Jim Television.
The ruling All Progressives Congress APC may likely declare a free contest for the principal positions in the forthcoming 10th National Assembly. While the APC had initially zoned the principal positions of the 10th Assembly to different zones in the country, where the Senate presidency was zoned to the South-South and the Speaker of the House of Reps to the Northwest, while the Deputy Working Committee of the party a couple of weeks ago that Senator Godswill Akpabio is the consensus candidate for Senate presidency and Jibrin Barau as the next Deputy Senate President in the 10th Assembly. Abbas Tajuddin was nominated as a consensus candidate speakership slot. Well, we know this decision, of course, elicited angry reactions from lawmakers-elect who had declared their intention to contest for this position. Is, however, recommending that the contest be now thrown wide open. Now, it appears the National Working Committee is suspicious that their plan may not go as in for G6 aspirants, as we're known. The aggrieved aspirants who have said we were not widely consulted on this matter have already adopted a consensus candidate amongst themselves, but they haven't revealed the identity of that candidate. There are feelers that the current chief whip of the Senate, Orjus Okalu, is the Baja boys, because they don't know what they're throwing up, according to other quarters within the party. Secondly, they say they've gotten concrete information that the G6 is going to the South-South to pick their deputy. Now, how feasible is all of this? If the rumored concerns or the rumored, well, like we said, there's no tentative or confirmative information on this, but it's just the word that's been spread around, then does it even make sense in getting the Deputy Senate presidency from the South-South as well? Well, I don't know, but it looks like so far the concern may hover around the zoning slots given to the North. And that's because the Northwest, we always say locally or dramatically, secured the role of Deputy Senate President and Speaker of the House of Assembly and or the Federal, the Deputy Senate Presidency position to either the Northeast or the North Central, or vice versa. Just reverse the role. So it goes beyond just saying the contest has now been thrown open, where the 109 senators are now being left in the quagmire as to who to support, because everyone had dramatically looked up to the APC leadership for some kind of, for the National Working Committee to declare the contest now open. So how far will this go to alter the arrangement that was already on ground? Would interestingly like to start from the Senate chambers, that's the red chambers, where Godswill Akpabio and Jibrin Barau, from the supposed merger between these two men, because as we know it, Jibrin Barau was also interested in running for the Senate until his faction merged with the Akpabio faction. And as of today, we hear 69 senators-elect have all signed an endorsement of, let's roughly round that figure to mean 71, because traditionally all the 109 senators would have to cast their vote. So If you have 69 already backing Akpabio and Jibrin, add the votes from the two men themselves, it gives you 71 as opposed to 109, and it looks like it's the majority who are on the side of Senator Akpabio himself. So zoning or not, the man seems to be going about his business of winning over support meticulously, so much so that he PP. Well, this is confirmed, of course, by a statement from his spokesperson yesterday, and this is all in a bid to back his aspirations for the leadership position of the National Assembly. So, addressing the National Working Committee of the NNPP, led by its acting national, determined to secure the support of the leadership of the opposition parties ahead of the June 13 inauguration of the 10th National Assembly, and have said membership offensive consultations on the matter, as we've never had a situation where 8 political parties form the crux of the current National Assembly as what we're looking for in the 10th Assembly. It's a key-led Senate presidency. Everyone agrees the APC needs to get this one very, very right. And if you're already having factions brewing up in a matter of the principal positions in the National Assembly, then it means the APC really does have problems on its hands. And if the story that the G6 have already adopted a consensus candidate for themselves is true, then it will make the contest even more interesting. But some would say, having garnered the bigger concern here has to be what happens in the House of Representatives. Maybe Akpabio is going around getting the support he needs to push through. But a success for Senator Akpabio and Jibrin Barau would also mean there is problem in the Green Chambers, because the position of Speaker here has been zoned to the Northwest as well. And that's where Jibrin Barau, who's been favored for the deputy senator, then having as many as over 65 or 69 senators backing their aspirations. So it looks like if the APC have to shift ground on its formal consensus candidates for dispositions, it will likely happen in the House of Representatives. So some have said out to be thrown open, because while it's also had pockets of endorsements here and there, it doesn't seem to enjoy the wide fan base or the wide support that the likes of Senator Akpabio currently enjoys, while his deputy speaker nominee in the person of Ben Kalu has also been seen as someone who's not so steady. Recently, he criticized the APC for the zoning formula, even when he was shortlisted for deputy senate presidency, because he also joined the school of thought from the lawmakers elect in the Southeast who say the Igbos or the Southeast were not widely consulted within the APC before the matter of this decision was taken. You also have aggrieved female lawmakers within the APC who say, look, you're zoning 4 principal positions in the parliament, and not one of it was reserved for women. So how far are we going with the hopes or the aspirations of fostering or engendering at least 35 assembly was, put aside for a woman? So if you have those factions also complaining, then it means going forward, we surely may not have seen the last of all of this. I will keep on following and monitoring this development, because time is actually ticking. The 10th Assembly is the inauguration and the vote by the 360 members of Parliament in both the upper and the lower chambers, seeking to elect their national leadership going forward. So right now, the lobbyings and the consultations should be concluded sooner than later, but everyone is also still monitoring the body language of the president-elect, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whose candidate it announced sometime last week. But now that we know the contest has been thrown open, according to a statement by the APC, it's unclear what trajectory the likely vote on the floor of Parliament would take. But some would say, for the case of Akpabio, it's seemingly looking pretty dusted. So it's not just enjoying the fanfare around his aspirations as the consensus candidates of the APC. He's also been able to, on his own, single-handedly garner the support of a lot of senators elect, with 69 being the number as of today. There are insinuations it could likely increase going forward. That's how far we can go on today's edition of Political Spectrum. Thanks indeed for joining us. But sincerely apologize. We'd hoped to bring up Godwin Adobo to talk to us about the brewing crisis within the Labour Party with reference to the drama we saw with the PEPC yesterday. We'll follow up on this discussion tomorrow. We'll be talking to a Labour Party chieftain who was also a part of the presidential election campaign for the Labour Party here in Akwa Ibom State to put us through the crisis brewing within the party and whether there is any end in sight. But most importantly, if it will not likely hamper the party's chances of success at the post-election litigations currently ongoing at the Elections Tribunal. But that will be when next we come your way on another edition of Political Spectrum. Thanks indeed for joining us, Raymond, Ita, and the rest of the crew. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.